Hello there ladies and gentlemen, I'm Paul TX141 Walsh, welcoming you to an all new World of Warships gameplay today on our channel. In this episode we'll be sailing out in the Tier 7 American premium cruiser known as the Atlanta in a Tier 8 domination game on the map Land of Fire. Now we're not sailing alone today, we are joined by our good friend Z, who is sailing out in his stock Tier 7 carrier, the Japanese Hiryu. And I picked the Atlanta when Z said he was going to give his stock Hiryu a try, in order to try and help him maximise the survivability of his aircraft. I saying to him that if he ever felt that his bombers or fighters were in trouble against the enemy carrier's aircraft, the enemy team having a Kaga, the Tier 7 premium Japanese carrier, he could just plant his aircraft over the top of me and I would use the anti-aircraft batteries of this cruiser to maximal effect. Whereby the Atlanta has a brilliant reputation for being a wonderful anti-aircraft cruiser. What with her having a maximal 7.2 km AA range, i.e. that's the range you can get it out to, and 145 damage per second on her long range batteries, the 8 twin dual purpose 5-inch guns. Now on top of that we have to consider that we do have 33 DPS on our 4.4 km range mid batteries, and we also have a 2.9 km range on our 35 DPS short range batteries, but it's the long range coverage that's the most important here. And it means that not only can we support Z, but we can also support the 2/3 of our team that are making their way towards Charlie, if we plant ourselves right in the middle of the fleet or just a little bit in front. And it will make it very difficult for the enemy carrier to be able to do any effective damage to a large portion of our team. And that's the point of today's video, using the Atlanta as a ship to benefit the team rather than just your own pocket because it's a premium ship that can make a lot of money. So the reason I've picked to go Charlie is because I've seen where all of our team are going, they're stacking up north of sea, and I want to provide that anti-aircraft screen. And right now we can even provide a little bit of AA support to our Kagero, who's extended all the way into Charlie. But as we can see, the enemy fleet has really pushed and gone for Charlie, and have sent a Kagero of their own into the objective, who's now falling back behind their smokescreen. But one asset the Atlanta does have to combat smokescreens is an 8.49 km radar unit, whereby when we activate it for 25 seconds we'll be able to see out to that distance whether the enemy's in smoke or not. Now we can see here how we've lost our Kagero to the enemy Kagero, and now we're going to get a little bit of payback, because there's also an Edinburgh in that smoke. We've seen the armour piercing shells flying out, and what we're going to do is use our friendly Fiji smoke to just creep a little bit closer. I want to maximise the coverage of my radar onto that objective, so if the Kagero cannot be brought down, they are forced to leave the objective and therefore not be able to take it. Delay their ability to achieve the flag. So just creeping a little bit further forward, we get RPF, which confirms our suspicions that most likely the Edinburgh is in there and right in radar range, and we spot them on the radar. And our team instantly switch to the Edinburgh, who's just sitting there and starting to reverse. And knowing the slow reversing nature of light cruisers in the British line, I've played up to the Fiji so far, whereby they take ages to switch on reverse gear in my experience, that Edinburgh is going to lose all of its health over the course of our radar and just after, as the shells go whizzing in, and we can see as we set the Kagero on fire that our Fiji secured the kill. And we can see how, by firing at the Kagero putting on the radar, they pulled out to Charlie because they want to survive. So that's a capture prevented, and that resets the entire scenario, which is both teams are contesting C. No one has an upper hand right now, just like at the start. And as we can see here as well, look where we're positioned in relation to the rest of our fleet. We're just at the front, and all of our ships, perhaps excluding our turrets, are within anti-aircraft range, which means the enemy Kaga, if they decided to suddenly try and bomb out our fleet up here, has no ability to do so without losing a large number of planes. Now unfortunately here we are detected, we fall out of our Fiji smoke as it begins to evaporate, and we can see that the enemy Gator has decided to push into Charlie and try and take it. But having been detected for a very brief period of time, we decide to sprinkle inside our 5-inch gun battery. Fire. And as we do so, we pick up 2 resets, we pick up a third, and we throw in one final salvo to try and get a full reset on them. Doesn't look as though that's going to be successful. And we can see here as well how the enemy Kagero is a little bit out of position and trying to reverse onto the objective. And that's only another 40 seconds before our radar is reloaded. So we're just waiting on that, because our logic is we need to get rid of these 2 destroyers who are adamant they're going to take that objective. And in the meantime, notice how the enemy Miyoko is falling apart thanks to Z's torpedo bombers, which have sadly fallen most likely to defensive AA, but that Miyoko has lost 4/5 of its health. It's got very little left on it. So good job to Z, picking on the isolated cruiser. And in the meantime we decide to sprinkle in some rounds, not expecting to do much. We need a ridiculous amount of lead and prediction in order to hit that Miyoko, but we're giving it our best shot as we head out to our maximal range of 13.3 kilometers. In the meantime, the enemy Gator is respotted by a number of planes, Z's fighters primarily. He's doing his little bit for the team, providing vision on the enemy destroyers, and that means we can do some good damage on that Gator there. We're working in harmony right now, Z and I, thinking about what to pick on. And that's forced the Gator to fall out. Unfortunately, they did manage to get the objective before they got pushed out. But what we decide to do now is push forward, because we've got no destroyers down this side, but we are a destroyer leader and we have good concealment. So let's go forward, get a little bit closer to Charlie, because the Kagera is very hesitant to get into Charlie. The Gator has marooned themselves on the landmass, and the only things left are 2 battleships, which we can point our bow towards, if not angle slightly off of. And triggering our radar here as we push forward to make sure we spot the Kagera who's heading back into the objective. They've now got nowhere to run, because they've turned bow into the objective, so they need to do a full 180-degree turn. And that means as we sprinkle 5-inch gun battery fire towards them, we just put in the shells and eliminate them for our first kill. So that's both enemy destroyers out of the game, and that makes our life even easier now as we take some shells from the enemy turrets. And even the enemy North Carolina decides to fire at us, but we've cut our speed, and it looks as though, in fact, they're aiming perhaps a little bit too high on us. And dispersion was also on our side, fortunately. So now we can just stop firing, let our detectability by sea of 10.7 kilometers keep us hidden, and that means the turrets behind the landmass can't shoot at us, and neither can North Carolina. And because these 2 battleships no longer have any support and they're apart from each other, Z can go charging in with his torpedo bombers once again and hopefully put an end to that turret's ambitions. In the meantime, we're just going to sit at the front of our team here and make sure Charlie's taken, as the turret does throw up some defensive fighters, and we use our anti-aircraft here in order to help defend these torpedo bombers and push these scouting planes as well. Remember, they're detecting us away. We take down one and we'll get the other one shortly, making sure to direct our batteries onto those planes using the control click feature to do additional damage. Now we could at this point go south and pursue the North Carolina, but what would be the point in that? This is an objective based game mode. There are 3 objectives, we need to take them and secure them to get the points. So instead we're turning straight towards Bravo, making sure to eliminate that fighter in the process where possible to take away that North Carolina's scout for the time being. And keeping in mind that we're only detected by air at a distance of 6.4 kilometers, that means that anything that does detect us by air has to fall within our AA guns, so we have no qualms there. And as we charge over to Bree, we can see that a friendly Kutuzov is coming down from northeast of the objective and will roughly get there at the same time. But also notice we're not too far away from the rest of our fleet, and that way we're providing the lead anti-aircraft screen for 2 Fijis, a North Carolina and a Tirpitz, which is why the enemy Kaga cannot send any planes at the moment in order to try and disrupt our formation. And what this also means is that if the enemy Kaga does decide to target us, we've got the anti-aircraft batteries of our lead cruisers to help defend us. And we've also got Z pushing down the very eastern edge of the map with his carrier, so we're all sailing together as a nice blobbish fleet and putting our way forward towards Bravo. And in the meantime, this cut off North Carolina, they can return fire, but look how many ships are engaging them in return and doing the damage. So it's only a matter of time before they fall under intensive fire as they scratch our friendly Kutuzov. But in the meantime, we're looking towards the west. We're focusing on any enemy aircraft coming in. And this is where we can bring to life our defensive AA power, as the Kaga is now forced to try and send some planes to disrupt our efforts westwards. We see a set of torpedo bombers coming in, and what we decide to do is engage our defensive AA here to make sure that these ones cannot stop us from taking the objective. Now some may argue that popping defensive AA here was a bit of an early usage and perhaps a waste, and note how we instantly turn our anti-aircraft batteries off and then back on in order to reset the reload timer immediately, rather than waiting an additional 30 seconds on the 40-second duration. The reason we did that is so that way the torpedo bombs cannot stop us from getting Bravo, because the rest of the enemy fleet over in the west is too far away to get involved at the moment. And I've said to Z at this point, watch out, there's 2 fighters coming towards your torpedo bombers, bring them back please, and I'll make sure that those fighters can't do any damage. And because we've exhausted our defensive A, it's not a problem, because look where I've put my ship. right in front, only about a kilometre or two in front of a whole pack of cruisers, one of them being another anti-aircraft cruiser known as the Kutuzov, which means those fighters when they come over are going to get an absolutely hostile reception and get torn to pieces. He's also bringing in his fighters at this point, baiting the enemy fighters onto the whole anti-aircraft battery screen, and they're falling apart. We've already picked up one plane shot down, all of our guns are going wild at this point, and the Kaga is pulling their fighters back, but not without significant losses. Now here what's also nice is we positioned ourselves in a little alcove which shields us off from the entirety of the enemy team, but puts us right at the forefront of our team's push, meaning that the Kaga cannot get any planes onto our ships unless they sail for our anti-aircraft batteries. And with our defensive AA only 30 seconds away, this causes problems for the enemy carrier as they send in a set of torpedo bombers. They seem to direct them over us, perhaps going for a drop on us, but because we're so close to the landmass, they've either got to come towards our stern, alternatively they've got to try and come round to our port side. That means doing an entire rotation around our plane, and all the torpedo bombers fall as a result. And these fighters also get in the mix there and do a good job. We've now got some dive bombers trying to creep their way over, but they're just staying out of range of our anti-aircraft batteries. The Kaga's now a little bit more savvy as to what we can do to their aircraft. And what this means is Z can now go charging in with his torpedo bombers and even take a fighter squadron ahead with them and go for some of those enemy cruisers, targeting the enemy Belfast at this point. Because he's got the remit to, knowing that the enemy fighters were severely wounded in their initial pass. We can see how the enemy torpedo bombers have come charging in. We tear down two of them, and it seems as though the Kaga's just decided I'm going to throw these in anyway, as we triggered our defensive AA once more, bringing down an entire squadron of 6 planes. And seeing that there are no other enemy aircraft coming into the vicinity, we decide to cut the reload early on the consumable. And now we're just going to wait here for a little bit because we want our battleships to get into forward positions, because as we head further west we'll be going into purely open seas around Alpha, and that's not where the Atlanta does well. It prefers to be hidden behind land masses and in very tight spaces. So therefore we're going to let our turrets push up, but remember we're always here to provide the anti-aircraft screen as we just monitor the enemy Scharnhorst pushing out north to pursue our Shiratsuyu. We've also got some enemy torpedoes coming in, not a problem, our cruisers are spotting those with hydroacoustic most likely, or spotting them early anyway. And now our turrets really pushing forward and the enemy Kaga spotted, which means that perhaps the Kaga is going to feel additional pressure and target the turrets specifically, as they're most likely going to be spotting them once these planes pull back, whereby he's really targeting that Belfast right now and trying to do as much damage as possible. We should push forward with our turret and provide it with additional anti-aircraft support. And we can see here how Z's torpedo bombers and dive bombers have done their job, and that's one Belfast eliminated. Good job Z, and he's picked up a tail of some enemy fighters and one set of the torpedo bombers, so we're going to move forward and try to save them, or at least save the second squad. Any planes that we can save for our teammate, all the better. The Tirpitz is pushing up as mentioned previously, and they'll be able to bring some anti-aircraft fire too because they've got wonderful anti-aircraft batteries on the Tirpitz, especially if it's Spectre and AA build. As we come forward here we can see that while the torpedo squadrons that Z had did fall, but those enemy fighters are suffering casualties once again, and they seem to be so out of position now and too far forward that as they go to retreat they're just going to take more losses. And notice the dive bombers coming in, and notice our defensive AAs ready once again. It's practically ready, 2 seconds away. Those dive bombers are not going to have a successful drop. We instantly switch on the consumable and we're right there and ready to protect our pride and joy battleship from the enemy aircraft. We continue to go forward, making sure to stick as close as possible to the Tirpitz, and that way we can bring in our mid-range and perhaps even our short-range anti-aircraft batteries. Any additional DPS we can provide will be good. We're focusing on the torpedo bombers in particular because they can do the most damage to the Tirpitz. We knocked out a good number of aircraft. The first load of torpedoes have been dropped, the second load are coming in. Those planes are falling out of the sky as well. And we can see that our Tirpitz only takes 1 torpedo in the end. And they were quite close to not taking any whatsoever due to the spread on the torpedoes. So we kept our Tirpitz nice and healthy for them to push forward. There's only 2 enemy ships left anyway, i.e. the carrier and also a Duca da Costa, which is all the way up at the top of the map. And we'll just sail into Alpha and make sure that we can help secure the objective as quickly as possible before pushing up towards the enemy ships that remain and taking them down. So always providing that extra security as well to make sure that our teammates get the objective as quickly as possible. Now some would argue that it is just farming XP, and I can agree with you to an extent, but my logic is a battleship such as the Tirpitz, especially because of how fast it is and on top of that how much damage it can do when in the right range and in the right situation, those battleships should be going forward constantly when the opportunity is there. They shouldn't be made to sit on an objective, which is why we're pushing forward and making sure we take the capture point with them. And we triggered our radar just in case anything was in that smoke screen. Of course, the Duca da Costa is all the way up at the top of the map, but we decided to anyway just to make sure there's no surprises in the smoke, as we see they're all the way up in the northwest corner of the map on 433 health. There's nothing to worry about here, our teammates can finish off the job and clean off that remaining cruiser. And for those of you wondering, last time I did the World of Warships video, you said that I sounded sick. No, all the stumbling and whatnot is because I suffer from hay fever, folks, and my nose is running like mad at the moment despite medication. But that's the game over, let's take a look at the post-game stats. A rather simple voyage to victory in the end. We can see that our battle performance consisted of 13,701 damage, as spread across 27 target hits to our main batteries, 33 enemy aircraft shot down, 1 incapacitation, 1 enemy ship destroyed, i.e. the enemy Kagero, 1 fire set, 3 base defends, 1 base captured, and 2 assisted base captures. Moving on to the team scores, we can see that we topped our team in terms of base experience earned, picking up 2,068. Our role was to help secure objectives and provide the anti-aircraft screen for our team. What's more, we also used our radar around the Charlie objective to spot enemy ships that are otherwise undetected, whether in smoke or just in plain seas, i.e. the enemy destroyers and the Edinburgh, which was pitched up in its smoke. And in doing so, we helped to make sure our team could take that objective and in the way snowball our way through the middle of the map, going west through Bravo firstly and then on to Alpha, without any major interference from any enemy ships or indeed the enemy carrier's aircraft. Looking at our detailed report, we can confirm the usage of our radar as a spotting tool, whereby our damage upon spotting was 31,359. The majority of this most likely coming down to the enemy Edinburgh on Charlie, and also the 2 destroyers that were supporting it, the Gator and the Kagero. And as for our credits and experience earned, we can see that after additions and deductions, we walked to have 265,112 silver credits and 6,204 Commander XP. To conclude, whilst the Atlanta can be a very powerful ship by herself if played effectively, she can be also of mass benefit to her teammates. Firstly, due to her wonderful anti-aircraft screen, whereby its long range and very powerful damage per second means that enemy aircraft that come in to attack the fleet are going to have another thing coming. And her teammates do not need to sit right next to her to feel the benefits of her anti-aircraft screen, allowing her teammates to split up and cover wider ground. On top of that, she can also provide the eyes for her teammates when going up against the enemy in a choke point or around an objective where the enemy team may have dug in with greater concealment values or with a smoke screen, and her radar is the perfect counter to that. Therefore, whilst many may play the Atlanta by themselves and consider their own pockets thanks to the amount of silver this ship can gain, for others like myself, this is a ship that is all about putting the team first. And so I've been TX141. And if you have enjoyed this video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future World of Warships videos on my channel. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and fair seas.